Okay, so when you are going to write a speech, there are many coaches out there that will teach many different things. I'll keep it very simple. Whether you are writing a speech, a presentation, you're coaching, remember these three P's: parable, parallel, and point. So if anyone here reads the Bible, there's a verse in it that says that Jesus always spoke in parables. He always spoke in stories because that was the way people understood the point that he was trying to make. So when he was teaching the disciples, he said, you know what? I need you to go out there and minister to people. But what they understood is fishing. So he said, I want you to be fishers of men. So what he did was he came up with a story that got his point across. So if you can think of a story, and we're going to practice that a little bit later, a story that is from your life specifically, because if I can Google about Nelson Mandela or someone else, that's not your story. So if you can come up with a story that illustrates your point, that's the first thing. And I just use P for parable because that's just another word for stories. Second point is the parallel. When you tell a story, and you've probably seen speakers do it, whether it's in short speeches or long speeches, they tell their story, but you're like, what does that have to do with me? Has that ever happened to you, that where you've heard a story and you can't connect what it has to do with you? You always want to have a parallel. So how does your story relate to the people that you're talking to, whether it's a coaching client or you're in a boardroom meeting or you're giving a keynote presentation? How does your story parallel to the people that you're talking to? And finally, your point. What is the point of your speech? What do you want them, and I come back to this question always, what do you want them to think, feel, or do as a result of your speech? So when we do the word wisdom portion of this meeting today, think of those three things. What's my parable? What's my story? What's the parallel? What does it have to do with the people that I'm talking to or the people that I'm trying to help? And what's the main point? What do you want them to take away? What do you want them to do? Hi, Lydia. If you want to say something, unmute yourself and go ahead.
All right, can you hear me? I have a little trouble with stories, okay, because I think I'm a very boring person.
No, don't ever say that.
I haven't got myself into a lot of trouble, and I have very good friends, and I've always tried to live by the golden rule, and I'm not perfect by no means, but I don't have exciting stories in my life.
Okay, so there is an article that I read from my coach and Tim's coach, Craig Valentine, and it's called 10 Places to Find Your Stories. Now, just think, Lydia, of anything in your life that has taught you anything. And what we do is, it's good to reverse engineer who you are. So if you do this homework for me, just write down 3 to 5 words that describe who you are. So things that are important to you. So my word might be loyalty. Your word might be honesty, or whatever those words are for you. And all you ask yourself is one question: what are those words and how did I learn it? How did I learn to be that trait? Or where did I learn that value from? Right? Does that make sense, Lydia?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay, so start with that, and I just wrote it down because what I'll do is on another one of these calls, I'll do places to find your stories, and then we'll make that a lesson for that meeting. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay, let me see if there's anyone else that wants to come in first of all. And then so the second part to this lesson, before we go on to the next part of our meeting, if you will, is how to be memorable with your words. So when you're writing your stories, a lot of people say whether you should memorize or not memorize. I'm a big fan of internalizing your speeches, but having certain parts memorized. And certain parts that you want to have memorized are the lines that people will remember. And there's an article on my blog, and it's called Cream in Your Coffee. So if you want to pick up a good book on speaking, the book is Speak Like Churchill, Stand Like Lincoln, okay, by James Humes. He's a speechwriter that was that wrote speeches for Nixon and a few other presidents. And if you remind me before the end of the meeting, I'll put that in the notes. So if anyone else knows that book and can link it in the chat so that people can pick that up. That's a good book to read. So think of the acronym CREAM when you think of writing memorable lines that people will remember. So the C is for contrast. So if you can think of whatever the phrase or the point that you want to make, what contrasting items can you have in there? Highs, lows, hot, cold, those types of words that contrast each other. That makes things memorable when you speak. The R is for rhyme. An apple a day, what's the end of that phrase? Keeps the doctor
away.
That's right, Green. The reason we remember it is because it rhymes. Is there something in the main point of your speech, the point that you want people to take home that can add rhymes? Not that you're a poet, but sometimes that really helps. E is for echo. If a phrase is echoed or feels like a pattern, people tend to remember. John F. Kennedy, what's his most memorable line? Anyone?
I have a dream.
No, John F. Kennedy. That's Martin Luther King.
It's not what your country can do for you, what you can do for your country.
That has echo. Ask, country, repeated words. We remember that. I never even seen the speech, but I know the line because it has echoes in there. And sometimes it's okay if people don't remember most of your speech, but if they remember a few key lines that they'll repeat, that will help you as a speaker stick in their mind, or as a coach. You can even use this if you're doing one-on-one coaching so that people remember when you're talking to them. A is for alliteration. Alliteration is when words in a sentence start with the same letter. So I have a dream that my 4 little children will live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. Lydia, who said that?
Probably Martin Luther King.
There we go. All right, so the C's in there: color, content, character. When you make a point, can you use alliteration in there? And finally, my very favorite is M for metaphor. Can you use a metaphor in your speaking? Muhammad Ali, what does he say? Float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. We remember that because he compares the known to the unknown. So if you have a story and you can compare that that event that you went through to something that people know, then it sticks in the minds of your audience. One of my coaches, he uses a metaphor of crabs in the barrel. So people pulling you down. We remember that because it's something that everybody knows, and then when you put that into your story. So just something that you can think about for when you're writing stories: contrast, rhyme, echo, alliteration, and metaphor. Does that make sense to everyone?
It does.
Okay. All right, so now we're going to put my friend Ruth on the spot. And Ruth has written a speech, and she's actually in Toastmasters. She's pushing for that distinguished Toastmasters, even though we're online. So, and she's a good friend of mine, and I called her up and I said, listen, this is not a Toastmasters meeting, but I want you to get every opportunity you can to speak and get that damn DTM by June. So, with that being said, I'm going to try to do it, give her the timing in this way that I thought of and that someone else at another Toastmasters meeting had done. And I'm going to, Ruth, can you see my picture? Can you make sure it's always on the screen?
Well, actually, sorry, I only see you talking. I don't know. I don't see you sharing.
So you see, yeah. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen.
Okay.
And I'm going to show you the green, yellow, and red light.
Ruth, might I suggest that you pin Kwesi's video? You know how to pin it?
Yeah, let me see.
Right, so you pin, yes, if you pin it. Yeah.
Okay, pin his video. Okay, your pins.
Okay, perfect. All right, so I'm going to hand the floor off to Ruth. I'm going to be her timer, and I'm going to shut my mouth for a few minutes. Okay, so what are we doing, 4 to 6 or 5 to 7?
5 to 7.
Okay, 5 to 7. Karen, you're her evaluator, okay? And basically, you're just evaluating the speech in general. I don't know what her objectives are, and I'm sorry I didn't get that ahead of time. So the floor to Ruth.
In 2008, on a Greyhound bus trip from New York City to North Carolina, I started to doze off. Moments later, I wake up in the air to the sound of glass shattering and people screaming. Mr. Chair, fellow Toastmasters, most welcome and honored guests. You see, that day, I wasn't the only one that dozed off. So did the bus driver. And the bus driver made contact with the tractor-trailer truck, and we flipped in the air and overturned into a ditch. For a while after that point, whenever I was in a moving vehicle and there was a sudden jerk, it would immediately bring me back to that moment, to that day in 2008. Thankfully, none of us has died. Some had more injuries than others, but it got me really thinking about the whole concept of fear. Now, I was suffering with a little bit of PTSD, understandably so, because of that accident. But that experience really got me exploring why we feel fear. And I was recently listening to a podcast by the woman by the name of Lisa Nichols. And she's a transformational coach. And she has a beautiful acronym for the term fear, which is false evidence appearing real. I'll say that again. False evidence appearing real. Now, in my situation, it was very real. We did hit that tractor trailer truck. We had every reason to feel fearful. But it got me thinking about other times in my life where I experienced fear. Now, for a long time while growing up, I was very uncomfortable in speaking in public settings. And the reason for that, which I'm going to share how I overcame fear, but it was based on what I was telling myself. So the purpose of this discussion, this speech, is to share with you how I overcame fear in the area of speaking up in public settings. And I'm going to use the 3 A's on how you could accomplish that as well. So the first A is acknowledge. Acknowledge the fear. Don't try to suppress it. Don't try to cover it up. Acknowledge the elephant in the room. So whenever in my situation, when I felt uncomfortable speaking up, I would acknowledge that I'm feeling uncomfortable right now. And acknowledge what was happening with me and what was making me feel uncomfortable. So it's in a way you're observing your thoughts without judgment. Acknowledging that it's there, being aware that it's there. Because oftentimes people will suppress it by not acknowledging that it's there. And what happens is that they just do things in autopilot. A fearful thought happens, which leads to a fearful emotion, which leads to a fearful action. In my case, not speaking. So acknowledging, being aware of it. Now, which leads to the second A, which is acceptance. Accepting the fact that at times I may feel fearful. I may feel not confident to speak up. I may have doubtful thoughts. That most people have similar thoughts. That fear sometimes is for our good. It's a great defense mechanism, especially when we're in dangerous moments. But what Lisa said, false evidence appearing real, sometimes our fearful thoughts aren't warranted. Usually when people are thinking or having anxiety thoughts, which leads to fear, is because they're thinking of something that has already happened or something that has yet to happen. So they create a narrative. So my narrative was like, I'm not smart enough. I don't have anything intelligent to say. People would laugh at me. I would stumble over my words. This was the narrative that I would say to myself over and over again. Now, is it true that people may laugh? Is it possible? Sure. Is it possible that I'll make mistakes? Sure. But it's false when it hasn't happened yet. And it's even false if it already did happen, because you can't dictate the future. You don't know if it will happen again. The next A that I want to share with you is affirmations. Now, affirmations was one of the key ways on how I changed that narrative, changed my thinking, so that I would have less of those fearful thoughts, less of the fearful emotion, and less of the fearful action, which was not speaking up. So an affirmation that I would say in place of, I am not a good speaker, one of my affirmations was, I am an exceptional speaker. People want to hear from me all the time. I always have insightful things to say. Now, it's not just saying these affirmations once or twice. We have to kind of change the narrative, change the programming of saying the negative things through repetition. The best way to say affirmations is usually just before you're about to go to sleep and the first thing in the morning. The reason for that is studies have shown that you're most likely to start the process of reprogramming your subconscious when you're more open to it. And that's usually before you go to bed or when you're first waking up in the morning. So saying affirmations over and over again helped me to gain the confidence in being more comfortable in speaking up and combating those negative limiting beliefs. So the point of this is to really share with you the 3 affirmations, or the 3 A's, which is acceptance, acknowledge, affirmations. And that if you apply those 3 A's in your life, you may see ways on how you overcome fear. And that's my call to action for you, is that we all suffer, we all have fear. And I encourage you to apply these 3 techniques. And let me know personally if it works for you, Mr. Chair.
And I know it's silent, Ruth, but it takes a lot of bravery to kind of get on here and do this in a new environment. So thank you for that. And you were right at the end at 7:28. I don't know. Could you see my screen there? Did my screen? Okay, you saw that. Okay, good. All right. So we are going to come back to evaluations later, but we're going to now jump right into word wisdom. And if you came in late, all right. Okay, so if you came in late, word wisdom, basically all I'm going to do, guys, is I'm going to give you a word, and you're going to come up with one of your personal stories, your PSs, and use the word in describing not only your story, but the point that you want us to take out of it, or the point you want your ideal audience to take out of it. So if you're a speaker, think of the people you speak to, and you go from there. Okay, does that make sense? All right.
Yes, it does.
Okay. Does anyone want me to do an example first, or do you want to jump into it? So
I would appreciate an example.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to go to my alphabet of words, and I'll just pick a word here. See, I get to pick the word I want, unlike you. All right. Okay. So, necessary. That's my word. Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know my story, I used to be a police officer with the RCMP. I was for 12 years. I was charged with a crime I didn't commit. My word is necessary, by the way. I was charged with a crime I didn't commit, and I ended up spending 6 months in jail, 10 months in the Canadian correctional system for a crime I did not commit. And during that time, I would go back and forth in my mind saying, how did this happen to me? Why am I here? And coming out of it is only when I gained the maturity to know that some of the things that I went through behind bars were necessary in order for me to build the resilience to be able to go out there and speak to other first responders, to speak to youth, to be able to help people that are going through their own adversity. It gave me the credibility to be able to speak to them and help them. So the punishment or the punitive things that I went through were necessary to build my resilience so that I could go out there and help others. Does that make sense? My audience is first responders. I used the word, I used my personal story, and I gave a point that what you go through is necessary to help you grow. Does that make sense to people?
Yes, it does.
Everyone? Okay. All right. So I'm going to pick words and pick people, and you have up to a minute. Now, does anyone want to volunteer to be my timer and just kind of wave your hand at the 1 minute point?
Okay,
Phyllis.
I could be your timer. Oh.
Okay, so Phyllis jumped in quickly.
Okay.
So whoever I pick on, please watch Phyllis or pin Phyllis's screen. And at a minute, she's going to wave, and that means you got to be pretty much done so that we can get through as many as we can. Okay, does that make sense? Okay, so first up, I'm calling on you, Tim. Grapple is your word. Unmute yourself. And Phyllis, you're ready with a timer? So wait for Phyllis, Tim. Okay. So Tim, the floor is yours. Grapple.
Are you selling to your ideal customer, but grappling with the ability to make a deep connection? My role is to come in and help you build that bridge between your ideal customer state and your state so that they can relate to one another and make sales happen for your organization. I am an advisor to high-performing B2B sales professionals and company owners to help them build those deeper connections with their ideal customers so that they can get more sales faster.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. All right. Awesome job, Tim. I like what you did with your background there, Phyllis. Okay. You made your background green. Okay. That's really smart. Is that just a background thing? I guess I have to do my chat, my Zoom tutorials.
I use it as a timer for a contest, and it works wonderfully.
Okay.
So
all right.
I did forget to ask you. You said we're going for a minute, so that says to me 30, 45, and 1.
Okay. Yeah. You know what? 30, 45, and 1 is actually better than what I was going to do, which is just at a minute. But 30, 45, and 1 is perfect. Okay.
Okay. Yep.
All right. All right. Roger, facilitate. You ready to go, Roger?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, pin Phyllis, and you're on. You're on.
Yeah. Let me pin her, and I'll take off here. I spent about almost 35 years in the commercial airline industry. And I did everything from ramp agent, loading airplanes, to a ticket agent. I was a crew member on cargo aircraft. I went into middle sales management. And the one thing I found when I went into management, in middle management, is number one, it was sales management, which I never really wanted to be a salesman, but I got talked into it, drug in there, and a fellow trained me. He facilitated me to learn the process of being a salesperson. And the more I got into it, the more I enjoyed it. And the reason he brought me into sales was because of my background on logistics. When we were going to load an airplane with a large piece of cargo, he would have to go down the hall and have one of the logistics people figure out what was going to fit. He didn't have to do that anymore. He had me right there, so I could figure it out for him. So I helped facilitate what he needed as well. Little Toastmasters.
Okay, thank you. I love the wave. I'm going to do the wave too, so that people don't get blasted by my clapping in the speakers. Okay, Kareem, Appreciate.
Appreciate. It's always good to show appreciation because every day as we go through our life, there are persons who do things for us. How often do we stand and think about it? How often do we let them know that we really appreciate their contribution to our success or to just our development or just a kind word? As we go along, I encourage everybody, think about what persons do and remember to always show genuine appreciation. This helps in your development and in your success. Or the speaker before spoke about his experience in sales. You need to show appreciation to your customers. If they give you an order or if they even accommodate you so that you can have a sales visit, please show appreciation. Every time, that's something we should always remember. Give back, show appreciation, because guess what? You never know how that will impact someone else's life.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. And as we go through more of these, I'm going to challenge you to use more of your own personal stories. And we're going to do something different every time we do this. Okay. Who's next? Who's next? Mitra. Valor. Valor. And if you want a different word, let me know, or if you want a definition.
Can you give me a different word?
Okay. Validate. Is that better?
Yes. Lately, I have been using our circumstances of being stuck at home to validate my decision to no longer want material possessions, or I should say more material possessions. I often dream about having amazing surroundings, like the background you see, which is a virtual background. But lately I've been thinking, what is the use of working 24/7, thinking, worrying, stressing in life just to have more, when all I really need is just time, and time with myself and with family. And lately I've been using the time I have to truly appreciate living and being in the moment, where I feel that in the past I was too busy running and trying to grow and get bigger for what I don't know. So I want to say that is the one positive thing from all the captivity in home. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, even though I can't see faces, Magdalene, can you hear me? Magdalene? Maybe not. How about Carlene? Can you hear me? Carlene, can you hear me? All right.
I'll go.
All right. Clinton.
Yes.
Surpass.
As a young man growing up in Trinidad with my grandmother, I was told by my family that I probably would not amount to much. See, I was born to a 13-year-old mother, and I did not know my dad. And my mother paid a consequence for that. I was handed over to my grandmother. I feel, as Les Brown said, I was given birth by my grandmother and went into my grandmother, and given birth by my mother and went into my grandmother's heart. And for that reason of not knowing who my father was, I was labeled to be nothing. As I traveled to Canada, I also felt I was nothing. But coming here and being exposed to a different environment, I was able to surpass a lot of people's expectations of me. As a matter of fact, I was able to surpass my own expectations of myself. We have come here and have achieved certain success when I was just, which I did not mention. But sometimes I look in the mirror and I look at myself and I said, man, is that you? Did you really do that? I was able to surpass the expectation of me. Back to the chair.
Thank you. Thank you. Quick break here. Are people finding this helpful? Is this something that is helpful? Yeah. We're learning about each other. We're getting to practice, okay, who we are and what we do. All right, so we're going to take a quick break from this. We're going to come back and do a few more. But Karen, I'm going to put you on the spot. Are you ready to evaluate Ruth's speech? Yes. Okay, so Karen's going to unmute. Ruth, your evaluation from Karen.
Sorry, I had to turn my page back over.
Okay, no problem.
So Ruth, I really enjoyed your speech. You did a great job. I love the alliteration that you had with your 3 A's. I have a few suggestions, particularly pertaining to this medium. One thing is your facial expressions when we're dealing with this, because all we can see is your face and sometimes your hands, but your facial expressions are really important, equally important to your vocal variety. So just be aware of that. Put some more expression into your face as you're going through this, which leads me to 2 other points. One is when you're speaking, look up there at the webcam so that you're looking at us. I know I do the same thing. I look at who's speaking rather than looking at the webcam, but that's something when you're dealing with a visual media like this, it's important to look at the camera. The other part related to your vocal variety, I would suggest your opening that you change it from being a narrative to being more story-like and bringing us into that bus with you. So something like you're sitting on a bus, you're on the way to visit your grandmother, and just imagine as you're relaxed and you fall asleep, and all of a sudden, bang, or something like that. So really bring us in. That will hype up the emotion of what you're trying to get your point across, or your fear. My last point for improvement is I found your transition from the bus story to your fear of public speaking needs a little work. It wasn't a really clear, smooth transition. So just maybe work with Kwesi on how you can improve that transition. But I really liked your story, and I really liked your use of fear and your suggestions of how we can overcome our fear of public speaking, because they were all very, very useful. I especially liked when you talked about affirmation, you gave us specific advice about morning and nighttime, repeat these, because that is really important. But all in all, I really liked what you were doing. Just work a little bit more on working with this medium.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Karen. And just for a timing note, we're probably going to go till just a little bit after 4, if that's okay with everybody. I didn't send out an agenda, and I will do that the next time we meet. Avis, did you get my text message? So thumbs up or thumbs down? Oh, okay. All right. So before we get to Avis, who's going to be giving a short speech as well, we're going to do some more of these jump arounds, okay? So now we're going to call on Michael. Michael, can you hear me? Yes?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. So you know the rules of the game. I give you a word, a minute to talk with your personal story, and a point for the audience or the people you speak to if you're a speaker. And your word is strategy.
Strategy, that's a great word. So when I think of strategy, I think of planning. And this relates to what I used to do. And now that I'm not in this field, it was more of a financial advisor. So I've been in financial services for a number of years, and everything is about strategy. Thinking about where you are right now and where you want to be in the future and what kind of risk you're willing to take. I apologize for that background noise. But the idea being is that you need to strategize in terms of visualizing where you want to be. And it's not just about the money. It's about what the money can do for you in terms of the enjoyment. And especially now, in these times, money means nothing. It's all about quality of life. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Before we go on, if everyone can put in the chat if you are a keynote speaker or aspiring keynote speaker, or if you speak for work, or if you're a coach, why you're on here and why you're trying to develop as a speaker, just put it in the chat so I can just take a look there and see kind of who we have on here. And it can just be a couple of words here. Okay. And while we do that, Phyllis, I'm going to time you. Okay. You ready, Phyllis? Your word is quest.
Hang on
Oh,
just
sorry,
a second.
sorry.
I gotta get back to you and pin you. Too many things open here.
Okay.
Pin you. Okay.
Okay. Phyllis, your word is quest. Is that okay?
When I was still working, I had a job that I really, really was good at. I would go around the West Coast putting in a program system for the large hospital organization that I worked for. I got a new boss. She immediately cut away from me everything that I loved, and she put me in a position that I could not achieve. And I've already forgotten my word, quest.
Quest.
What this did for me is it took me back to my childhood when I was growing up. I was a second child. I was not the most loved child, and I struck out because of that. I was on a quest to make everybody's life hell because nobody loved me, or so I felt. As I grew older and I got involved with Toastmasters, I realized that I had a family out there, a family that loved me. I thought my quest was ended when I put together several different clubs and rode the elevator up to being district director. But what I have found is that was not the end of my quest. And I am now on a new quest that helps me and to help others discover who they were born to be, because I know there is something else out there for me and for you. If you have not realized what you were born to do, now is the time for you to start thinking about it, because I'm coming your way and I will be helping you as I help myself learn what that is. Back to you, mister.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. Clinton is going to be the evaluator. We're going to take a break right here, do one more speech from Miss Alice Brody. Okay, I hope you're ready. You're got your water there. Okay, and I'm going to Phyllis, how do I do the background?
You have to have loaded the graphics. If you want me to go ahead and do that,
Can
I'd
you
happy
be the
to.
timer?
Absolutely. And what is the
Okay.
time on this one?
Okay, is it 4, 5, 6 or 5, 6, 7, Alice?
Let's do 5, 6, 7 and see what happens.
Okay. All right, so you're going to pin or watch Phyllis's screen as you go because she's going to be your timer. Clinton is going to be your evaluator. Okay? Floor is yours.
What would you do for your child? I had to figure that out one day. Here's what happened. It was a beautiful, beautiful summer's day. It was hot. It was June. We lived in the country. We had quite a few acres, and my husband kept bees. And down in the corner of the property, kind of down the hill a little bit, were big white beehives. Have you ever seen a beekeeper? They have a hat on, a veil in front of them, long sleeves, long legs to their pants. Doesn't matter how hot it is, those pants are tucked into their boots. And they carry with them a smoker to put smoke on the beehives to keep the bees quiet, to keep the bees calm. And that's what Bill was doing this day. He was working with the bees and everything was fine. I was in the kitchen doing the dishes, looked out the window and I see my son playing in the sandbox. We had a big, beautiful garden. We had, it was just the most beautiful day and it smelled so gorgeous outside. And I see my husband, and I look at him, and he's going like this, because I can't hear him. He's too far away. And I think, what is he doing? He's waving at me. Hi, honey, how are you doing? And he's going, oh, like this. So I go out the back door over to where my son is. And I suddenly realize what's going on. Bees have swarmed, and they are making a beeline for the house. So my beautiful, gorgeous day suddenly turned cloudy. At that time, Luke was 3 years old. I was pregnant, and I had very, very, very long hair. I ran over to Luke. I leaned over him with my long hair to protect him, make a curtain around him. And I scooted him to the front of the house, opened the door, and pushed him in, closed the door. But what did I hear? All I could hear was bees, because they were getting stuck in my hair. And all I could hear was bzzz, so loud. And I started to hit my head to kill them. I couldn't escape. I ran around to the side of the house, couldn't follow Luke in. Of course, I would have brought the bees with me. I ran around to the side of the house, and I opened the garage door and I went in. Bzzz, bzzz, bzzz. All I could hear were these bees. It was just overwhelming. So what did I do? Eventually, I managed to hit all of them, and there was no more noise. Then I went and I took a shower to wash them all off, and I counted my stings. I had 32 stings. I don't know about all the ones in my hair, but I had 32 stings on my body, and I was 6 months pregnant. Oh my goodness. Well, I called my obstetrician, and it turned out I was fine. Thank goodness I was not allergic to bees. Thank goodness that I'd had that garage to go into to stop the bees from coming behind me. So I ask you, what would you have done in the same situation? And you may be thinking to yourself, I bet that girl doesn't like honey anymore. But I do. I love honey, and I have forgiven the bees. So think about that the next time you have some honey. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Avis. Okay, before we get to Clinton, we're going to do a couple more words. I'm going to call on my friend Laura. And Laura, your word is going to be upgrade. Were you here for the rules? Okay. And Phyllis is your timer. You have up to a minute. She's going to show you a green light at 30, yellow at 45, and then red light, wrap it up. Okay? Go for it.
Did you know you can breathe wrong? A lot of people never think about their breath. And I'm talking about people who speak, not so much people who sing, but definitely people who get up and speak don't really realize that you can breathe wrong. If you've ever thought about your speaking in a way that you want to have your voice carry to the back of the room, you want to be able to continue a long phrase and not have to have tension in your body, to not be nervous and to kind of tense up your shoulders when you're nervous. We all have a little performance anxiety from time to time, right? Well, this is the best way to upgrade your speaking. Stop and think about your breath.
Thank you very much. Okay. Ethel, you're up. And your word is gullible.
Being gullible today in this time of COVID-19 makes me think of the people yesterday that decided they were going to go to City Hall and say, I want my freedom. I want to be able to go where I want to go and do what I want to do. I could not believe that these people did not understand what COVID-19 is. So I think they were gullible. I hope everyone tries to make their lives much more understanding so that people will be aware that being gullible to have whatever they want is not the right thing to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ethel. Okay, right over to you, Clinton, for your evaluation of Avis's speech.
Thank you very much, Alvis, for this, for your beautiful speech. Alvis, today you took us on a journey. I liked how your speech had a beginning, a middle, and an end. Let's start from the beginning. I liked you opened with impact. What would you do for your child? Gets our curiosity away right away. When you say that, what would you do for your child? You continue on with the flow. What would you do for your child? Pause. When you ask the audience a question, you pause so they could think in, what would I do for my child? Then you continue on. I like the flow of your speech where it was easy to listen to. You had a certain pace that we were able to follow along with. During the course of your speech, when you get to the middle, you had very good gestures and descriptive words. You were not just telling us your speech, but you were showing us your speech. When you speak about your long hair and you touch your hair, when you speak about your husband waving to you to come inside and you were waving. So it wasn't just telling me, I was able to follow through. Your gestures was in line with exactly what you were saying. So that make it more for the audience to appreciate more what you're saying, and I was right there with you with your speech. Within that course, you had a question of, have you ever seen a beekeeper? Again, pause. Have you ever seen a beekeeper? Have you ever seen a beekeeper? So you could have used into the camera, out of the camera more to connect, come closer to us. As you go along, you started talking about your story about your son and washing yourself, and you were doing so good descriptions. I like your vocals, but you could have used more conversational tone to weave instead of saying more monotone all along. I know this is a medium that we're not used to, but but it's your story. So you could have put a little more passion in it. When your son, when you get stung by the bees, like, oh my gosh. So I like that about, so you could have added some of those things. So changes in tone, changes in conversation, changes in the pace of your speech to heighten, to take us up and to bring us down. All in all, I liked how you finished, because I'm a person who uses honey all the time. And you know what? I will still continue to use honey. Thank you much for sharing your story with us. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, Clinton. I just got to say this, Michael, with that background there, you're making me miss my sports. Can't wait for something to come on once again. Okay, and I got that, Kareem. I got your message that came in there. Okay, before we wrap up here, I want to get just some comments from Ruth and Avis, our two speakers from today. First, Ruth, any comments on how it felt to give a speech on Zoom and the feedback that you were given?
Oh, no, this is fantastic. And I've developed very bad habits of being on Zoom. Because I'm in Zoom, I feel like almost 40 hours a week. And there's bad habits that you get on being on Zoom. So this has reminded me, because I'm looking at everybody's faces, but not looking at the camera. So this was a great reminder for me. Feedback was fantastic from Karen, and I love the word bank. I'm utilizing the words to introduce how we are a service. So, okay. Awesome.
All right. And Avis?
This is new for me. Speaking on Zoom is really new for me, and it feels really uncomfortable. So I appreciate your feedback, Clinton, and I need to work on it more. I know I need to look at the camera. It's just not natural to look at that little dot. You want to look at people in the eye. We're used to looking at people. It's just hard to look at a dot. So I have a lot of work to do, but I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you. Okay, so in the interest of time, I want to respect everybody's afternoon. And I'm just going to open it up to anyone. How did you like the flow of this? Did you like the word wisdom bank that we did? Would you like to see this again with another guest expert coming in? Let me know what you guys are thinking. So you have to unmute yourself if you're going to talk. Is that Karine?
Ethel?
Okay, Karine, can you start over? Because now that
yes, I have a comment for Ethel. Last week, we could only see your neck. We could see a little bit more of you this time. So progress noted. I think you still need to make some more adjustments to your camera so we see more of you and less of the wall behind you. But I noticed the improvement.
Okay, thank you for saying that. I appreciate that, Karine. Okay, and how did the word bank go for those who spoke? Anyone who spoke? How did you like the word bank and having to use your own personal story? It's good? Okay.
I think this was beautiful. I think this was great, Curtin. I think this was great, Kwesi. Thank you for arranging this. I'm getting to meet and being together with some great people here. I hope we continue to grow, and I hope we continue this and expand this a little more, and maybe form our own little group here where we could help each other. I think this is important for us. We're developing and learning from you and Tim and Corinne and different people who are here, Ruth and everyone. I mean, everyone. Like, this is great. Let's keep this going and doing different things.
Okay.
Thank you very much for everyone. Thanks to everyone.
Okay.
Kwesi, I really liked how you mixed things up, a little bit of the word wisdom and then a speech and then some more word, and then it wasn't just one thing and then switched to a whole different format. So it kept us all interested.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Yeah, anyone who wants to speak, just Phyllis, go ahead.
What I would like to hear more of is more of your story and your resiliency. It may be treading a little bit on what you provide to the general public, but I think some of the tips that you've learned would really help me, especially, to take things to the next level, because there are common failures in all of us, and I would love to hear how you got past those.
Will do. What I'll do, Phyllis, and I'll send it to anyone who's interested. For the other side of my business, resiliency, I'm going to be doing a webinar on overcoming resilience and that in general, that specifically that. So I'll definitely add you to the list to come in for that webinar as well. And so I'm trying to keep this more speaking focused to help the people here. Most of you are either aspiring speakers or coaches, but yes, definitely, I will send you an email, Phyllis, about that as well. I would suggest if
some of us could post this and give some recognition to what you're doing, and not, you wouldn't want us to do this, but just as post it and let them know what's happening, because you're in business and promotion is important. So if we can just probably go on our Facebook and say a thank you to everyone of Kwesi for what he's doing here, I think.
Oh, that would be nice. Thank you very much. I'm taping this. I'm going to put it on YouTube. I'll post it on my Facebook. If you want to share it on your pages, that's fine as well. I'd like to get a word from anyone who I can't see. I'm unmuting everybody. Magdalene, Kathy, I know Phaedra, you don't have a speaker, so that's fine. And Carlene, any words from the people we can't see today? I'm going to go 5, 4, Bueller.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Magdalene, yes, well, we can hear you.
Yes, this is Magdalene. Sorry, my internet hasn't been very stable tonight, but I've enjoyed the little bit that I could get into. And kudos to everybody. I hope I'll be able to join the next session as well. And I'm in Accra.
Ooh, wow. Okay, well, thank you for joining. Lydia, do you want to ask that question to everybody? Because I'm not sure what you're asking there. Or do you want that to be just for me?
No, everybody. We know that we are partnered with the Rotary Club. I think it's a good idea if we can take advantage of that. Mm-hmm. Have you any idea how we can do that?
What are you doing?
Can,
Sorry, I muted everybody again to reduce background noise, but yes, Avis, you're up.
Okay. So, hi, Lydia. I've given a couple speeches to Rotary already. And what they want to know is what's Toastmasters and how we can help them. So what you need to do is just contact your local Rotary. You can look them up. You can find the contact on the web. And generally you speak to the president. And the president has somebody in charge of education. And that person is the one that will book you. But you have to speak to the president for, at least that's been my experience. And it's really smooth. I mean, you're just going to talk about Toastmasters, and I know that you know it super well. And they're a different kind of, do some research first on what Rotary actually does if you don't know, so that you can give them something practical about how we can help them. I told them they should come to some Toastmaster meetings. Online, of course.
Okay,
Hope
thank
that
you.
helps.
Thank you for that. Lydia, did that help? Thumbs up or down, or you need some more information? Yeah, so I suggest you guys connect with each other. And Abbas, you want to put your email in there to Lydia privately. You guys can talk more about that. Okay, so that being said, Phyllis, go ahead.
I have an offer for everybody who's on this line today. Some of you know, some of you don't, that I put out a magazine called Voices for District 7 Toastmaster, which goes out to the international website for Toastmasters International, as well as out on Issue and LinkedIn. If you have a seminar that's coming up, especially if you're a Toastmasters person, I'm more than happy to put that in the magazine. I only publish once a month, so I would be looking at June for now, and send them to your websites. So you just need to send me that information, and Kwesi, you've got my contact information.
Can you type it into?
I'll put it in the blog or
into
the chat. Yeah,
put it in the
but
chat.
that offer's out there. I put out about 60 pages a month.
And I highly suggest people go in on there. I think Phyllis has published for me before, and it's helped people find me. Laura's here because of our connection with Phyllis. And just to let you know, if this 3 o'clock time frame works for you, we'll do it again next week. If everybody's good for that. What I want to do is start bringing in some various people that might have expertise. For instance, I have a friend that's really, really good on LinkedIn. Some tips for your LinkedIn profile, for your business, for speaking. She can do that. Laura, she's on our call today. She's a transformational certified voice coach, teaching you how to use your voice to project. And I'm sorry if I'm getting it wrong, Laura, but teaching you how to use your voice effectively. She's going to be one of our guest experts. And, you know, correct me if I'm bastardizing what you do. Sorry about that.
You're fine.
Okay. Yeah, so I want to bring in people that have their own expertise in certain areas. Does that sound good to everybody? Yeah. Okay. All right. So Ethel, yes, you have something to say. You can raise your hand. You can unmute yourself. Just jump in.
Okay. The one thing that I wanted to mention, our first speaker, she's in a chair, and I'm only mentioning it because I was in a rocking chair, and the person I was talking to was saying he was getting sick because I was rocking back and forth. But I'm just wanting to recognize that you're sitting in the same type of chair that she is, and you're not moving around. So it was just a little awkward seeing her move back and forth in the chair. So we might just look at that as well. But I loved your whole concept today. It was really good, and I'm hoping that we can have some more people in.
Okay, yeah, it was really good. Not even everyone who signed up came today, so I'm sure we'll see more next week. If the people that we can't see today could do video, that would be great. If you can't, I get that too. Not when you're driving, of course. And Phyllis, I'm going to add your name to the resilience list so that you get an update when I do a resilience webinar. And I will send a meeting. Is everybody on my mailing list? If you're not, 52publicspeakingtips.com will give you weekly tips and get you on my list. and it'll get you the invite and the pesky reminders, are you coming to the webinar? So with that, I'm gonna sign off right now, unless anyone else has anything else. Just email me, and we'll see you next week, same time, same channel, okay?
Thank you very much. Bye, everybody.